Well, welcome to Giles Coren. Giles is an award-winning columnist and restaurant critic for the Times of London. He and his wife, Esther Walker, have the one-time #1 podcast in the UK. Giles Coren has no idea. I'm hoping you have a few ideas today for us. Um, we're ta- we're going to talk about what we usually talk about in my blog and anything else I do, which is Gleason 6 prostate cancer. It seems like within minutes of prostate cancer being declared the most diagnosed cancer in UK, you were diagnosed. So you are fashionable. But is that why you say you're fashionable? Because you were diagnosed within a day?
Yeah, I wrote about my prostate cancer, not out of any particular messianic zeal to talk about it, although that's how it was taken, and I'm happy to do it. Literally, I just needed a column for that day, and the front page of the Times on the Tuesday, I had all the papers on the floor of my room, said prostate cancer overtakes breast cancer as the most diagnosed cancer in Britain, and I had just got prostate cancer. Literally, I had got my biopsy result. Well, as I wrote in the piece, if the National Health Service had been 24 hours quicker, I'd have been on the very same day that it was declared. And I thought this is too good an opportunity to miss. And also just telling people at home, telling my family, my kids, 12 and 14, and my 11 and 14, and my wife and my friends, telling them about my biopsy. I'd made them laugh so much with all my sort of bum jokes that I thought, well, this mustn't be wasted. I must tell the world because you know, there's something. It was horrific and painful, but also funny.
Well, there is a stigma and a shame attached to most cancers. So by your opening up like that, you increased awareness, and yeah, and people are kind of surprised to find out that men with prostate cancer have a sense of humor about it. It's it's the only way to get through. And you
Yes, I suppose so. I mean, I'm not ashamed of anything really, and I know that people used to be, and it's slightly baffling to me. And people would just call it, wouldn't even call it cancer, and people were ashamed. I don't know why, because people were. I have the impression that people were more in tune with the idea of death for the thousands of years leading up to now, and now people can't handle it. Life and death and sickness and disease and early morbidity used to be the way of life. So I don't know how everyone got so cringe about cancer. But it's true, having written about it, a lot of people have freaked out. I mean, lots of people got in touch with me about it. Anyone, interestingly, Howard, anyone who's had any cancer in their life, had a diagnosis, got over it, lost people, been through it, they all understood my piece and went, "Oh, that sounds a bit of a bummer, but I'm glad to hear you're okay." People who had no encounter with cancer were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it. Oh, it's such a tragedy. We're thinking for you at this terrible time." And I was like, "No, no, no, it's Gleason 6. It's not a terrible time. This probably won't be the thing that kills me. I won't need treatment for a bit and maybe never, possibly one day, but I've spent the next week trying to relax people."
Well, I've been on surveillance for 14 years now, and and seriously considering going off surveillance because the odds are very low that I'm ever going to have anything serious happen with it.
So
So,
what's your surveillance shows what? Has your PSA stayed low or what?
well, yeah, well, let me tell you what it was like 14 years ago.
Hmm.
I got a call on a Friday evening. It always seems to happen on a weekend from a urologist who said, "Can you be in my office on Tuesday?" He was hanging crepe. And so I went into his office, and he mentioned all the choices. I could have cryotherapy and have my cancer frozen off. I could have surgery. I could have radiation. Uh, the one thing he didn't mention, and I had been the medical editor at the Chicago Sun-Times for about 30 years, so I knew how to do the research. One thing he
Hmm.
didn't mention was active surveillance, which first became available in the late 90s. And when I don't really want to go on and on about me, but
Hmm.
I was only 6% of us who were diagnosed uh, in, in 2010 only 6% of us opted for surveillance. And so all the rest were treated. I mean, with the introduction of PSA testing in the 90s, they created a epidemic of cancer that most of us
Mm.
could live with. And finally, the urologist could make a good living.
Well,
And
yeah, it's that's the thing, and that's one of the reasons they're not crazy in the UK to give people PSA tests because of the epidemic. In fact, I'm like love hearing your story. That's great to hear that the positives of active surveillance. And but I went to see after on the National Health Service, free and everything. I'd had this result. I'd never twice, I'd never seen the same urologist or spoken. It's always on the phone, never spoken to the same urologist twice. And I thought, right, if I've got cancer, I better go. I went to the top guy in Harley Street, which is where all the best doctors are, private guy, £200 for a consultation. I mean, not a lot. I mean, a lot to be treated, but I went for a consultation with this guy who's the top, Paul Cathcart, and he's one of the top guys in London at the King Henry VII. And he said, yeah, Gleason 6, active surveillance. I'm up. You should. That's correct. I'd stick with it. And then he looked a little bit sort of wistful and said, 25 years ago, I was taking out a lot of prostates like yours. And,
yeah,
there was no need. And I just breathed out, thought, my God, I mean, 25 years ago, they'd have had it out with all the attendant, side
yeah.
effects.
I think one of the reasons there was a reluctance on the National Health Service of GPs to do PSA is because they saw what happened in the United States,
Mm.
which was overdiagnosis and overtreatment. So they became very cautious. But the British also made a major contribution showing how MRIs could be used as pre-biopsy tools. So, although I read in your piece that I'm guessing that you had a PIRADS 3, you were neither here nor there.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so okay, we were finding out PSAs are not fashionable in the UK. But why?
Well, do you know what, Howard? Interestingly, the question I asked, which the National Health Service hadn't told me, I asked my urologist, but my rating is, I don't know, my PSA's 6 or something like that now. Was it this tiny cancer, this nothingy cancer? Was that what raised my PSA? And he went, oh no, no, no. You've got a bit of prostatitis, which he saw on the biopsy, but the health service never told me. And the prostatitis was why I had the raised PSA, and the cancer finding was incidental.
Right. Well, enlarged prostate can cause PSA to rise. Prostatitis can. It's not as simple, as you point out. It may not be a straight shot, so to speak. But you kind of forced the case. You wanted to have a PSA. Why? What was the urgency? Do you have a family history, or were you?
No, absolutely not. Au contraire. Well, my father, well, I'll come back. My father, my mother told me this recently. My father, who was a heavy smoker and died of lung cancer at 69, although the kind of cancer my mother, who is a doctor, tells me is not the kind of lung cancer you get from cigarettes, but I've always said to myself, they can't have helped. He had troubles with urinating in his 60s. He would always have to complain about peeing in the night and stop by the side of the road when he was driving to pee. And my mum just said, go and see a doctor, see what it is. And his attitude was, and he was a brilliant man and a writer and broadcaster, a genius. He said, no, no, I don't want to do that. It might be cancer. I wouldn't want them to find cancer. And I'm thinking, my God, what a stupid response to not to have a symptom, which I don't have, to have a symptom and not want to go. But that was his generation, head in the sand, ignore, ignore, ignore.
By the way, you mentioned not having a symptom. That's one of the things that the British press gets wrong all the time, which is for low risk prostate cancer, there are no symptoms.
Mm,
But inevitably, although they did a good job covering your case, and
mm.
they handed along good information. But at any rate, typically for low risk, there are no symptoms. So
Fine.
just so you know.
Oh, right. Well, fine. Yeah, no. Fine. Well, he might have worried that he was high risk. He knew nothing. But the answer with me is I went to the doctor, and what they have and although I have private medical insurance and it's expensive, I generally don't use it because if you claim on anything, it goes up by the amount you claimed by. So I've got it there should I ever need major care, and my whole family's got it. But the health service is quite good with cancer. So I went to my GP, my practitioner, my physician, and who I know quite well, and to have the annual blood lipids, they just have a look at your cholesterol and that's free. And they do you need a statin or not? And mine's a bit borderline. And so I have the conversation every year. And I said, oh, can you test me my PSA? And he asked the same thing as you. He said, oh, what, have you got any symptoms? He didn't say symptoms. He said, why would you want that? Have you got it in the family? And I thought, no, not as far as I know. My dad the lung cancer got him first. My mother had breast cancer, but in her mid 80s. So, I mean, that's whether she carries the BRAF gene or whatever, I don't know. But he said, well, I can send it to you if you want. But, in the health service, they're not allowed to recommend it. And their first move when asked is to ask why and to dissuade. And luckily, I'm an educated man. My mother's a doctor. I'm not a hypochondriac. We had those conversations many times. If you've got it, it's not the end of the world. Most men over a certain age will get it. Most men over 80 will die with it, but not of it. And I said, don't worry. I understand. I understand what the PSA would mean. If it's high, which it was, go for the MRI. It's indistinct. That this is all fine. And then even now, so it wasn't a shock. People go, you must have been so shocked. But I've known my PSA was high and it might be that for 3 years. And then when it was confirmed, it was merely interesting.
Well, the British press does a lot of coverage on prostate cancer in general, but
Hmm.
specifics, a lot of coverage having to do with high profile people. And it seemed seemed to me that you were influenced by the fact that Stephen Fry, uh, the news presenter, Bill Trumbull, uh,
Hmm.
am I getting his name wrong? Is it
Bill
Turnbull?
Turnbull, yeah.
Sorry about that. I used to live on Trumbull Lane, so
um, I, I'll be honest with you. I know Stephen Fry quite well. He wrote me a lovely letter afterwards, when he read my piece, and he had a full prostatectomy, and he wrote me a lovely letter that ended with erections are overrated. Exclamation mark. I actually mentioned them in the piece more to remind my readers that they'd read previously elsewhere and or heard about Stephen Fry, Bill Turnbull, and the tragic case of Sir Chris Hoy, the Olympian who has the advanced prostate cancer at 42. But I possibly I knew about it because of them, but I mostly mentioned them just to give the prostate a bit of celebrity glamour, bit of name dropping.
yeah, well, this is one of the reasons I particularly wanted to talk to you was, well, in the United States, a lot of famous people have talked about having more advanced prostate cancer and being treated, but there's sort of a secret club, I believe, of guys who are high profile but have low risk prostate cancer and go on active surveillance. And
Hmm.
in other words, somebody like Stephen Fry or Sir Chris Hoy
Hmm.
can't really hide the fact that they have cancer. Their appearance may change,
Mm.
treatment, they may disappear for treatment, but somebody like you or me, we don't have to tell anybody. I
Yeah.
I've surveyed readers my newsletter. About 30% of them haven't even told their families about it. Technically, they probably, I mean, they don't have to, but
I have a very good friend that I had lunch with the other day who is older than me and he's in his early 70s, but he had prostate cancer and he had a prostatectomy years ago and he hasn't told his children, and his children are now quite grown up in their late teens. And he hasn't told them because of stigma. He didn't want them to worry. And he hasn't even told them post, but because they haven't. I mean, he looks fine to me. Which is extraordinary because not because of, I think not because of shame or stigma, but because he wanted to protect his children from it.
well, I'm not sure if that's protecting the children or if it's a disservice. I mean,
Mm.
If if they're little kids, sure, why get into it? But if they're in their 20s and 30s, in my opinion, they should know about it. My kids are
Yep.
sick of hearing about it,
Well,
but
my son, I told I wrote a little follow-up piece. I don't know if you saw that, but my son who's 11, who I have to go and pick up from school in about half an hour, I took him to school on the day of my thing, and I timed my biopsy because it's near his school to be able to drop him at school and then go. And I told him about it, that I was having this procedure, and he said, "Ouch." And I said, "Well, listen, son, 40 or 50 years from now, you're going to have that." And it was very interesting what he said. He said, "Don't be silly, Dad. By the time I'm your age, they won't have to do that. It'll be all done by AI. I probably won't even have to leave home." And of course, he's probably right. In 30 or 40 years, you won't need a biopsy. Things moving so fast. One of the interesting things I think about active surveillance is that possibly, if it did move on and did grow and did spread, 20 years from now, treatments will be very different from the way they are now. It might be possible to treat without a prostatectomy by then.
well, actually, I did a program earlier this year and had a speaker from a company called Artera. They're based out in San Francisco, and they actually are using AI.
Mm.
They take the image from pathology and they can forecast it. Although I doubt if it's available in Britain. Some things you go very slow on there.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you've got it now, we'll have it in 10 years, which is better than nothing.
Well, I mean, the National Health Service has to be cautious. I mean, they could go broke. Well,
Yeah.
uh, but I mean, so in my eyes, you're a prominent person and you've gone public with this, even though you're low risk. I mean, do you realize that that's kind of a landmark? I mean, I, you know, there's only two other British men who are prominent, who I'm aware of, that are on active surveillance. There must be many more, but they're not talking about it. One of them
What do
is,
you think? What do you think they should? Oh, sorry. Who are they?
yeah, Sir Ian McKellen, who
Hmm.
basically tried to. He told the public he had it. He got the name active surveillance wrong, but it was obvious that's what he was on. Then his agent got on the case, and I'll send you an article I wrote about that. Um, and they covered it up. Eventually, he fessed up that he had it, but he has other issues that are more important to him. That's the thing, with low risk prostate cancer, you can kind of just surveil and walk away and not make a to do about it. And the other one is Colin McFarlane, who's an actor. He was
Right.
in one of the Batman movies and does a lot of voiceover. And he was fully aware that he was putting his career at risk because, well, Stephen Fry has written about this. If the first thing you do as an actor, if you're offered a gig, is you have to have a physical. And, producers and those kinds of people get nervous if they find out you have prostate cancer or any cancer for that matter, you know.
Hmm.
So uh, that's about it. In the United States, um, somebody like Ben Stiller, he was diagnosed with Gleason 7. And he was, as far as I can tell, one of the most educated people about this disease. And he opted to be treated. Some people find it insane that you don't treat it. If we've been conditioned to think, oh, you have cancer, well, you should get it out. Well, it's a new idea for some people to think that you can live with it. Um, and I know
Yeah,
guys,
I didn't know that. I didn't know that about Ben Stiller. I got a lot of people telling me I should have it out, and until I'd sort of explained. And treated really only means one thing, right? He's had his prostate removed.
well, radiation is another option. And
Right.
Robert De Niro is another one. They both came here to Chicago to see a surgeon at Northwestern University. And actually, De Niro got involved in a lawsuit with his insurance company. I think ultimately he won, but they were suggesting that he was trying to hide the fact that he had prostate cancer. So there's a lot of politics and money involved. I mean, it sounds like crazy conspiracy stuff, but uh, Stephen Fry has written all about it. I'll send you a couple of things just,
Mhm,
just for your interest. Well, let me ask you, you said, it gave you a column for the day. And
mhm.
I'm not asking you to commit to the cause, but well, it sounds like you did another column, which I missed. But what happens after that? You just go back to the usual, or will you have your eyes open for other things that happen with this?
Uh, oh, I don't know. My eyes will be open to it if something came up that was interesting. I tell you what, I might write about it again because my specialist suggested I go and have a test for the BRCA gene. You know, with the gene that.
Yeah,
But
well, it's funny in the United States, that's pretty standard. My understanding is in England, for example, National Health Service, I doubt if they cover.
Oh no, that wouldn't be on the health service. He said to me, "This is the thing that Angelina Jolie had." So I went, "Oh, I know that one." He thought it might be me because obviously because I'm A, young, and B, an Ashkenazi Jew, which are both sort of indicators of it possibly, and it's more prevalent. So I'm going to go and have a look at that, and it would mean if I were a carrier of that, I should probably get my daughter at some point tested to see if she carries it. I think probably if I am a carrier of that, I probably won't write about it because of the medical privacy of my daughter.
Well,
But
let me
yeah,
interject something. If you are a carrier of the BRCA mutation, it affects your son as well. Um,
yeah,
in other words, it was called BRCA because breast cancer, BRCA, was the first application, but it turns out that there are a number of cancers, ovarian, prostate, pancreatic, that tie in, with the genetic mutation of BRCA. Here in the United States, there's a study going on called the PROMISE study, and I participated in it. I'm also Ashkenazi Jew. I don't know why they keep picking on us, but
yeah, it's everything, isn't it? The news
yeah,
just gets better and better.
yeah. I I took the test and they found nothing that would indicate a mutation for prostate cancer. But they're always discovering new things. And what they found was I was a carrier for a kind of colon cancer specific for Ashkenazi Jews. So you can, and my mom died from a combination of breast cancer and colon cancer. And so I told the
So have you
finance,
been for a colonoscopy then?
I'm sorry.
Have you been for a colonoscopy
Oh,
then?
yeah, most people are recommended to have it every 10 years. We get them, my sister and brothers get it every 5 years, because that one they can nip in the bud with a colonoscopy.
Hmm.
And, so yeah, I do that. But, I told my siblings that, that I had this Ashkenazi Jewish mutation. And my sister told me now she was diagnosed with breast cancer. They didn't find anything except for this same gene like 5 or 7 years ago. She never told me about it. And then I have two brothers. One of them got tested and he has the gene. It's like a 50% chance. So we have 3 out of 3. And my fourth brother has, I'm sorry, my second brother has buried his head in the sand and he's not going to bother with it. But, I've gone out of my way to let them know the results of the test, just because it affects them.
Yeah.
And,
No.
and I think your idea of keeping it private for your children, that's the only way to go.
Hmm. No, that's the plan.
But yeah, I'm trying to think. I was worried I was not going to have enough time to cover everything, but I pretty much have covered what I wanted to know about.
Great.
Let me ask you, do you have any questions? Oh, hello,
Sorry,
Kate.
That's my cat. Hey, Iris, come sit. Come down.
Iris is in the flower.
Iris, as in the Greek goddess, I think we are talking about here.
Oh,
Come on, darling. Come and sit with me. Come sit. Come. Come on, off this bed.
she's mooning me is what she's doing.
Yeah, she is. There she is. There's my little girl.
Beautiful cat.
She's a nice little girl. No, so how long have you been actively surveilled then?
14 years.
And how old were you when you were diagnosed?
I was 62.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's great news. Well, I'm just because yeah, that's all just good news for me from the not freaking out. And you remain Gleason 6.
Well, my story gets better because remember the first doctor wanted to have my prostate out next Tuesday.
Yeah.
And I said, what about active surveillance? And he said, I don't support that modality. And so I went to the University of Chicago, got a second opinion. Doctor said, yeah, the first doctor is right. He could cure your cancer, but I don't think you need surgery. He said, I predict in 10 years, your cancer will not have grown. Well, in fact, in the United States, back, 2010, it's going forward for a few years, we had annual biopsies because the doctors didn't quite trust the safety.
Whoa.
Yeah, I ended up having 6,
Oh.
but here's which turned out to be useful in a way, although they don't do it that way anymore. But what happened was after I was diagnosed, the cancer disappeared. It hasn't been seen since 2010. And I haven't had a follow-up biopsy or MRI in 8 years. I'm just followed with a type of PSA test.
Oh.
So
And what's your PSA?
my PSA is in a range of 4.8 to about 5.2.
Right.
And it's been that way for about 8 years. Typically, as you get older, your PSA goes up
Yeah.
because your prostate gets bigger as you get older. So you're
Indeed.
producing.
Yeah. Well, no, mine's a little bit higher than that, but I mean, but yeah. Well, that's very good news. I certainly don't want any more biopsies. That the and that was grisly. It's only, I mean, it was 2-3 weeks ago, and it's just about the urine in the semen, the blood in the semen thing is a thing I can live without.
Yeah.
That was the most horrific thing about it. That was like yeah, it was yeah, anyway, that's a I mustn't talk about that in front of my cat. She'll be shocked. If yeah, fine. Well, that's great to talk, Howard, and I look forward to hearing it. No more questions.
I'm all set, and I'm losing my voice anyway, and I have
You
2
are a bit.
interviews today.
Oh,
So
brilliant. Okay, well, better preserve it. Great to talk.
if I have a follow-up question, I'll get back to you.
Do.
I should mention, if you ever feel like you need support, of course, you could always get in touch with me, but they have a very good support group from Prostate Cancer UK.
Yes, indeed. No, they've been in touch. I'll be in touch with them, and I will. And I've actually, you know what, all the big prostate cancer professors in London, since I wrote my piece, they all want to see me. So I'm getting a lot of very expensive consultations for nothing at all.
Well, I did an article last year on whether I should stop active surveillance. And so I got consultations with 16 of the top urologists in the world. So I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. No,
Sometimes it can be too much advice because these guys don't agree. I'll send you an article on that too. But
that'd be
anyway,
fascinating.
stay healthy. Don't worry. You
I
know,
will do.
you know,
Great
I,
advice.
I think you're in a good place. So congratulations. Sorry it happened, but things
No, it's good. I'm
things
happy. We live and learn. We live and learn. It's enriched my life, made life more interesting. And thank you very much for your support.
anytime. So hang
Cheers.
in there.
Will do.
Take care.
Thanks, Howard.
Bye now.
Bye bye.